You're listening to the Conscious Briefing Show podcast on A.K.A.
Alrighty. We are back for another edition of the Conscious Briefing Show. Guys, it's the Thursday evening, 6 o'clock, the 30th of May, and we have a special guest with us tonight. Westley, my man. How are you, Chana?
Hi, Jason. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, okay, tonight we're going to talk about philosophy. Why philosophy? Well, it's an interesting subject, and it's a subject that a lot of us don't seem to, we're not familiar with. And this is why we got Westley on the show tonight, and we're going to go into it. But before we get into it, Westley, I'm going to hand over to you. You're going to give a quick description, what you're about, a quick introduction of yourself.
Yes, philosophy, the art of using your brain.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, off the bat, I'm not a doctor or anything like that in philosophy. I didn't actually formally study philosophy, but it is a very big passion of mine. I think at heart, all of us are philosophers, really. Even kids, they're some of the best philosophers, asking the most questions, and it's just something that I've always been interested in. And over the years, I've sort of just delved deeper down and into everything, and it's extremely exciting. And I'm very happy to speak to you about it, because I think it's sort of something that's fading away, and people have the wrong impression of it. Something that's sort of boring, and it's like just what old people.
Yeah, they do, and this is why I'm having this podcast, just to reintroduce it to people. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. And I understand, a lot of people, philosophy, it's just a bunch of old people sitting around or, writing and just thinking about like abstract, useless things. And it's absolutely not the case. And it's something we need to revive, I think, really. It'll just get people excited about it, man. It's fun, it's good, and it's important. I think it's one of the most important things. Sorry.
No, you go ahead, finish.
No, I was just saying, for example, in South Africa at the moment, obviously with all of the political situation and everything going on, it has become so important to really actually just start critically thinking, using reason and asking questions, because in today's age we have the internet. We no longer really use our brains, use logic and reasoning for ourselves. We can just go on the internet, type in something, and then you get the answers. And that's good and everything. But, when it comes to morals and ethics and questions like that, the computer can't really make you feel or understand why something is right or wrong. And
100%.
You know what I mean?
I'm feeling you 100% there. All right, so let me give a quick intro on what philosophy is. I'm going to just paste it here on my Discord channel. There we go. Can you see it?
I see it.
Okay, philosophy is the study of general and fundamental questions about existence, knowledge, values, reasons, mind, and language. Such questions are often posed as problems to be studied or resolved. Philosophy is a way of thinking about the world, the universe, and society. The ideas in philosophy are often general and abstract. Right, that is in a nutshell. So let's start with the first question quickly. Just going to copy it here, and there we go. Who created philosophy, and in what time period?
It's interesting, because obviously people have been asking questions and thinking about things for thousands and thousands of years, but it was really the ancient Greeks in Athens that coined, the term philosophy, and philosophy meaning, so philo is love, and sophos, I think, is knowledge. So it's the love of knowledge, or lover of knowledge, or lover of wisdom. And and it really actually started with Socrates and his pupil, who was more famously, obviously, Plato, and then his pupil, who was Aristotle, who was later considered as not only a philosopher, but the philosopher. So yeah, ancient Athens, we're talking 500 BC, so 2,500 years ago, about, give or take.
Oh, here's a picture of Socrates. And then I got another one here of Plato.
He's going to have a beard as well.
Oh, now this photo of Plato doesn't want to load now. Ah, there we go. And it's on. Okay. These are the two. So I read up that Plato is the one who wrote the books. Socrates wasn't really the one that was interested in writing the books, but Plato did. But he did mention Socrates a lot in his books.
Yes, this is the amazing thing about Plato is his dialogues, his books, his writing. It's one of the most amazing things, in my opinion, about him. He wrote books such as what was it? The book is escaping my The Republic.
On the internet, books.
It's called The Republic by Plato, and in this book, what he uses is what's called Socratic dialogue, and it is a method that Socrates used to sort of get to the answers. And it's by asking questions, and it's sort of like in between a debate and a conversation. So there's a middle ground there. So the people aren't really fighting each other, but they're having a conversation to try and reach truths. It's extremely interesting. Anyone should go and read it. I mean, you don't need to be a scholar or anything like that to actually find it interesting, because it starts small and then it slowly builds and builds. And this is one of the things that Plato did that was absolutely just amazing. His writing.
Yeah, of course, I hear what you're saying. Yeah. So, okay, my next question is, in your words, how would you describe the terminology of philosophy?
By terminology, you probably mean like sort of the main branches.
The main branches of philosophy, yeah.
Okay, so there are 5 main branches, and so the first one would be metaphysics. And I know it sounds like super hectic and boring, but what metaphysics means is the nature of reality. What is, the nature of reality? Are we in a simulation, or am I in your dream? Are you in my dream? Or is reality real? So what is the nature of reality? And the second one, epistemology. Also sounds hectic, but it's basically the question of knowledge. How do we obtain knowledge? Where does it come from? Yeah. Does it come from our brains? Does it come from our genetics? Does it come from a spiritual realm? Does it come from God? So the nature of knowledge.
Sure, deep stuff. Eh?
Yeah, and is that through perception? Is it reason? Is it introspection? Like I say, spiritual. How do we know? And how do we know we know?
Yeah, true,
okay.
True, yeah.
So the third one then is logic, and we're all familiar with logic.
Yeah, we're all familiar with logic, yeah.
Yeah, it's the rules of sort of reasoning. So you can't really contradict yourself. Well, you can contradict yourself, but then you wouldn't really be doing philosophy, because so you don't want to contradict yourself. 2 and 2 make 4. It doesn't matter what you do. 2 and 2 will never be 5 or 3. And you can't eat your cake and have it too. It's just logic, reason, consistency. The fourth one, ethics. This is to do with sort of morals, values. What is right? What is wrong? What's good? What's bad? What's evil? What's justice? What's injustice? And how do we know?
Yeah,
and we sort of get to these sort of answers through using logic and reasoning. So the ethics is just more, what is right, wrong, justice, injustice, these questions.
Yeah, morality is a word I use a lot when I'm on Facebook, and that we try and describe it to people. Do we really know the difference between right and wrong? That's a worrisome, Mate. It's a big worry there.
It is, and that's a very good, philosophical question, especially in South Africa at the moment. This is why ethics to me is one of the most important things in South Africa.
Oh yeah, I agree with it fully, 100%. Yeah.
And then just finally, so the last one, number 5, and this is probably the most fun, sort of loose one, is aesthetics, and that's that's the question of like beauty and art, and is
yes, I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, of course, definitely. We got to know what art is. We got to know what poetry is. But that's in a little bit further. That's I've got Plato and his 4 big ideas, but we're going to discuss about that. No. Let's go quickly to the next one question. I was on YouTube and I saw the study that colleges and universities are doing, and I'm not really familiar with it. The study of PPE, philosophy, politics, economics. Why is it so important to society? The 3 makes a good trio, that,
It does. It does. And maybe they not even really separate. I would put politics, and in modern times, economics. I would put all of that even into philosophy. Different branches, obviously. But
in different branches, yeah.
So why is this? Why is it so important to society? Well, if we look at what the definition of society is, I just got this off Google. Is an aggregate of people living together in a more or less ordered community. Now, that order and this community can only really exist if we are all sort of have certain, I don't want to say rules. I'd rather say more. We have respect for one another. We understand that if I give you something, you give me something of equal value. I don't force you to do something, and all of these things. And obviously, if you take economics and politics, for example, you can't have contradictions. Yeah. And a lot of the times, especially now, like again in South Africa, we have contradictions. Everyone will have free stuff, but the economy is crashing. So this is a contradiction, and how are we going to figure this out? And this is why it is important to study this stuff. Another thing, just if I can throw this in quick.
Go ahead.
I think, philosophy, what makes it so great is that it teaches you, or it helps you to learn how to think, not what to think. A lot of these people, they like to tell you this is what it is, and this is how you must think, and this is right and this is wrong, without sort of giving you the tools to take it apart by yourself, and then discovering these different sort of problems and holes and saying, listen, okay, but there's a problem here. There's a contradiction. It cannot work. So the only way, I think, for people to really be able to spot these things, and me included, I mean, anyone, is to maybe learn these things. You don't have to go to college and study them. You can do it by yourself.
No, you can do it by yourself, definitely. Yeah. I mean, like you mentioned earlier, we've got the internet, but people just don't know how to use it.
Use their brain. We can use the internet, but yeah, I mean, because it's uncomfortable as well. You'd rather. A lot of people, and I used to be like this maybe myself, in a slight way, like I don't understand something, so I'd rather just listen to what someone else says and take it for granted. So I don't go and try and sort of rationalize and think about it myself, and then come to sort of a conclusion. I'd rather just listen. Oh yeah, he's more clever than me, says this, so it must be true.
Of course, but there's a library too. I mean, if you don't have the internet access, you can always go to the library and look up for these books and teach yourself.
Yes, yeah.
Quick definition I got you on economics. In its most simple and concise definition, economics is the study of how society uses its limited resources. Economics is a social science that deals with the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. Economics is the study of man and woman, how they get money and use it. Now, I had a podcast with Gideon Hubert a few weeks ago, and this was one of the things that I brought to his attention. Financially wise, we get the money and we spend it. We don't think of the rainy days and make provisions and save in it. And this is the thing what economics is. We're not, how can I say, I don't know if they're learning this in schools. Of course they are. But are they learning it in all schools? Is students of today, are they taking this as a subject, economics? It's a very, very important subject. Hey, what's your thoughts on it?
Oh yeah, it's obviously extremely important, and the older I get, and the wiser I guess I get, the more I realize that when I was in school, I couldn't care less.
Yeah,
Honestly,
yeah.
I couldn't care less about economics or anything like that. All I wanted to do was draw pictures and, see my girlfriend on the weekends. That's
Exactly. Yeah, true. Eh? The normal South African. That's the stuff we thought of. Yeah, exactly.
And it's interesting in the definition that you gave. I'm glad you used the word limited.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Look, I'm no economist. I listen to like great economists like Milton Friedman and so on. Free market, laissez-faire capitalism. This is sort of where I would be more inclined. And I listened to your previous podcast about capitalism and pollution.
Yes.
Yeah. I know, and I found that interesting, and and I'm glad to hear that you're also a sane person.
Yeah, but it's the job that I do. I mean, I work at the mall, and you just got to think of keeping the place tidy. I mean, who wants to come to a shopping mall where it's dirty all the time?
For sure.
But anyway, but more importantly, the economics. People out there, the students, the youth are not learning. They're not being taught about economics, and I think it is vital. And this is something that the ZACP should also, I mean, we both members of the ZACP, that they need to put more emphasis on economics, going and drawing up a reform program, that can help people out there learn these type of things, philosophy, economics, and politics with that regard.
Yes. I'm a supporter of the ZACP. I certainly voted for them, but I'm not a member. Maybe I should become a member.
The website's there, man. Did you not go on the website and click, and become a member?
Isn't there a new thing at Dubai? It's like a monthly 50 rand fee.
A monthly fee? Well, that's the minimum. I'm going to do a donation now myself tomorrow.
Nice. No, good.
I mean, this party's got great values. The 10 principle cause speaks for themselves. It's awesome, man.
Yes, yeah. The one thing, the critique that I had, look, I understand the ZACP, they just jumped, like they just came out and it's baby, like it's still a baby. And I spoke to quite a few people and I keep mentioning, like they need to use more sort of compelling speech, not necessarily sort of trying to explain people economics, because even if I hear the word economics, it sounds cold, it sounds dry, it sounds uninteresting.
But it's not. If you listen to the definition I just gave, it's not. It's basically self-explanatory. Everyone thought that economics was about trade markets and the JSE stock markets. It's not. It's how to make money and how to use it, how to budget yourself. Strange, eh?
Yes. The problem is that we have in South Africa, obviously, is how do you convince people with no money that it is not a good idea to vote for policies to take other people's...
Yeah, that point, you got a good point there. Eh? You first got to get the entrepreneurship on the go. Get people to show them how to work, get the money, get paid, and then how to work with it. Yeah.
Yes, and I think it's also it's an ethical thing as well. You need to sell the idea of individualism, and every person has a right to what he's earned, what he's basically created, and all of this, and that for someone else to build something. And then for me to go and take it and claim it as my own is not sort of ethically sound, and it is immoral. And and this is also where I think the Socratic method, we can bring old Socrates of 500 BC back in here, and we could imply and try and start using the Socratic method of having just a conversation and not shout at each other off the bat and have a debate and say, you're a retard, you don't understand economy, and you are wrong.
This is the thing, it breaks people down, man. I mean, there's people that come on Facebook and they join these groups and to get knowledge and information, and then you put a stupid question down and then somebody will break you down and call you stupid and that. And instead of helping the oak, give him some advice.
Yes, I agree.
Did you see that post I put on the group today about the Constitution?
Oh, yes.
There's many of us that don't understand the Constitution.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I've tried to read the Constitution. It's very, it's long.
It's very complex. I know, and it's huge.
Yeah,
but it's something we don't educate ourselves, because look, the Constitution was made up there to protect us. We work so hard for what we got in life, and then someone comes and takes it away. And there's people out there that just don't understand the Constitution and realize that, hey, this thing can actually help me. But I've discussed with Martin van Straten. You know Martin van Straten?
Yes.
He's also got, what's it, free market?
Yes, I've got a lot of respect for Martin.
I approached him today and I asked him if he's willing, if he's interested to do a podcast on the Constitution. And he said he's keen. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Yes, so do I. I mean, he's the man to speak.
So Martin, if you're listening, hey, but I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to having a podcast with you.
Yeah, so do I, Martin. Make it happen.
All right. We did speak about it. What's it? I just want to paste it. Yeah, this question. Yeah. Can philosophy define who we are today? And yes, we've touched base on it a lot. Philosophy can define who you are.
Yes, and where we are today. And this comes down to the situation we are in at the moment, and we've spoken about this here. So it's collectivism, which could loosely fall into the category of altruism, and then on the other hand, you have individualism,
yes,
which could fall under the category of rational self-interest, and the respect for everyone else. Maybe you can call it something like libertarianism, or just liberty and respect for the individual. And I know you wanted to talk about sort of human rights. What are the human rights and what is the role of the government and all of this? So
yeah, exactly.
We can definitely define everything. And I would define the current situation as our political system and our discourse has been poisoned by the foul doctrines of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. The socialism, Marxism, communism is the core root. It is the main ideological. History considers Karl Marx as a philosopher. I don't. The ideology of Marxism is really terrible. It's tearing everything apart.
I mean, look at all the stereotyping, all the double standards that we're experiencing today. And it just makes me sick, the double standards for one.
Oh yeah, and Marxism you can easily create us and them. It's the poor and noble, and then the rich and evil. It basically comes down to that, and people resonate with that because the reason for that also is that some champion, some charismatic guy can stand up and tell a poor people, look, I understand South African history is extremely complicated. I know apartheid messed things up a lot.
Yeah.
I understand it's not black and white. I know, but it creates this environment where an individual, let's say, for example, like Julius Malema, he can stand up and he can be charismatic and say, these are the enemy and these are the people that this is the reason why you are struggling. And everyone say, yes, let's stand up together. And it's very much emotionally driven, and there's not a lot of reason and logic behind it, because if you just start to scratch at the surface, you start seeing the holes, and exactly. There are many.
And this is what philosophy can do to individual. But the people that support those parties, they're far on the left, and they just can't seem to think for themselves.
Yes, see that you've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, exactly.
You've hit the nail on that. And you can do these things, it's easy. And I really believe that it starts when you're a kid. It starts young. You have to learn sort of how to kind of think. And I mentioned earlier, I think kids are like philosophers, right? They're like, why is the grass green? Why is the sky blue? All of these, it's sort of like quite deep questions. Obviously, these days it's easy. We just go and we, type in on the internet, or your mom or dad said, it's green because it's green, or it's green, because I say so. It's not like it.
But that's what I love. That's what I love about being a child. You ask all those questions, and it's up to the father and the mother to answer and nurture the child, because that's how you learn. But unfortunately, not all children grow up in that environment where they can ask a question and the parent will just say, I don't have time. Sorry, don't bug me. I'm tired, And as a parent, if your child asks you a question, answer him. He wants to learn. Yeah.
Definitely. And you know who will answer those questions if the parents don't?
Yeah. Yeah.
It
No,
will be
the wrong
the state.
influence. Yeah, the wrong
Exactly.
influence. Yeah, the wrong influence. Yeah.
It would be the other kids. It would be the gang. It will be the state. It would be the charismatic socialist leader. Or, and
And you know that you remember a few weeks ago when we had a discussion on Discord, and I said that I keep telling my son every night, and when I drop him off at school, I say, "I love you, my boy." That's another thing, you got to keep telling your children you love them fully, all the way, my man. Never stop. Never stop.
good parenting. Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Anyway, okay.
Is this in the context of South Africa? Is this perhaps maybe one of the biggest problems?
Yes,
because
so.
our education system obviously is suffering at the moment, but those kids need to be sort of prepped before they go to school, and they're failing. So maybe it's at the home, it's in the home, it's fucking how to think, how to reason, how to use your brain, the art of using your brain.
Yes.
And everyone could do it.
Exactly. Well, he has Plato and his 4 big ideas. And number 1 is now what we think more, know yourself. How can you think more when your mother and father can't give you answers, So this is what molds you. So you need to think more, know yourself. And I agree with Plato there.
Absolutely, and you made a good point. How can you think more if you're as a child asking questions and your parents don't have time for you, and they just say, "Well, I don't have time," or "It's just like that because it is like."
Yeah, absolutely. Then number 2 is let your love change you. True love is admiration. Oh, that is an awesome one, eh?
Yes.
Do you get what he's saying there? I mean, I get it. I mean, we grow up, we find a partner. And then this is where you make a decision. I need to change now. I need to stop my nonsense, stop my drinking, and stop the late nights and that. Let your partner change you,
Absolutely.
To become a better person, yeah.
And, okay, so love, I have to say, just because I'm critical and things like this, love is one of those questions that has also been sort of unanswered. I mean, it's so many people have tried to get to the bottom of, so many novels, poets. I mean, they talk about love, write music. People do crazy shit like cut off their ear, in the name of love, or go to war and stuff like this. So it's one of those extremely complicated things. But on the topic of Plato and his sort of the second point we're on here, he wrote a brilliant dialogue, and I'll be honest, I haven't sort of read or listened to the entire dialogue, but within in one of those dialogues, he sort of discusses sort of love, and it's it's also one of these dialogues, like I said, like a group of people, and they're at a dinner party, and they sort of get a little bit drunk, and then they sort of he visualizes it as sort of, and we have to remember in those days it was still Zeus and, all of these, Roman gods and whatever. Anyway, he said, in the beginning of time, people had 4 legs, 4 arms, and 2 heads. And then they were so happy and they just made so much noise and so much party that Zeus became angry and he shot down a lightning bolt and he cut them in half. So Plato sort of had this idea that falling in love and finding a partner is sort of like finding, your other half or the missing puzzle piece, and that person makes you better in a way, and you can make that person better in a way.
That's exactly what.
That's exactly Plato's sort of idea.
100%. Smart.
But I must also say that there are other more cheeky sort of philosophers and people out there that simply say, well, love is simply a trick of the brain so that you can procreate. So the human race can survive, It's a little less romantic.
And number 3 is decode the message of beauty, admiring art, poetry, etc. Oh, interesting one, that one, eh? I mean, have you ever gone to a studio, an art studio, and you look at a painting and you admire it and you go, I want this painting, Values that people seem to have forgotten about.
It's very true, what you say. And yes, I love I love art. I've always loved art from a very young age. I've always been artistic and everything. So art is one of my great passions, along with philosophy. And it's also one of those interesting things. You can ask, like, is art objective? Like, are there certain things that are objectively beautiful, you know, or objectively appealing, and or is it just some sort of is beauty in the eye of the beholder?
Yeah.
Very interesting, very interesting question. A lot of philosophers I've noticed have leaned more towards the more romanticism, sort of the more romantic side of art, and that means leaning towards portraying the idealistic things, like the most beautiful mountains that they can basically draw, or the most beautiful architecture, or most beautiful woman or man or scene or something like this. And then there's the other side of it, where people draw sad stuff, you know, they draw dark things.
True.
And throughout history, obviously, we know, like previously, like in the early Renaissance and so on, you couldn't really draw up, you know, like sexual, like hardcore sort of explicit things, or hectic death and stuff like that.
No, we couldn't. I mean, I don't know if you remember, okay, back in the 80s, Pink Floyd, Brick on the Wall, it was banned in this country. So yeah, exactly what you were saying now, yeah.
Yes, and that's sort of like maybe the Overton window of art. It's growing larger and larger, but then it also opens up so what is art? Is it supposed to be beautiful all the time? Is it supposed to be, you know, like, it's subjective in a way, and I like it like that, to be honest. So just on this point, I would say from Plato's perspective, it would be, he sort of, you know, like, had this idea of the ideal forms, the forms, right?
Yeah.
And there's this realm of perfect everything, and it was sort of the artist's job to try and create perfection, pretty much, that we can all as people sort of strive toward. And it's romanticism in a way, yeah.
And it's the same with poetry, like in Shakespeare and that. I mean, in schools you learned a lot about Shakespeare. It was the same thing. It was for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And today it's what Kim Kardashian does this shit and fucking
exactly. It's cuck. That's all the cuck we watch on TV, and it's the wrong influence that the children are getting.
Yeah.
All right, number 4 is reform society, governments and social society, behavioral thinking. Yeah, this is more your favorite one.
This is a big.
Your favorite. I'm going to hand it over to you.
No, you can speak if you want. I'm interested to know what you think as well.
But it's basically everything what we spoke about. Governments and how the left thinks and how they're making everyone think. There's no reform programs in rural areas. It's not helping. There's no future. At the moment, the future is dark. There's just no future. I can't see anything happening. What's going to happen to my son when he finishes school? Is there really going to be a job for him? I don't know. I can't say.
Yeah, I mean, that is a very serious question. I think we maybe do know a little bit. I mean, especially if everything carries on the way it's carrying on, and it's very concerning. But you know, at least we're doing these things. We're starting to talk about it. Hopefully, people will listen, and hopefully they'll, you know, sort of get more interested and do the right thing.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to talk about this a little bit from Plato's perspective, and why I'm a little bit critical about it. So we've established that Plato, for example, he had this, you know, the ideal forms. There's this sort of realm or place where there's all of this perfection, and what we need to do is to try and incorporate that perfection into the reality, to try and make something as perfect as possible. And that's good. That's good in one sense, but it's also extremely dangerous. Like, it's good to try and create the perfect chair, because it's the most comfortable, and, you know, all of this. And it's good to try and create the most perfect air control system so that no planes crash and so on. But if you now start trying to create the perfect society and utopia, that becomes complicating because people are individuals. And the only way for you to sort of create this system, this perfect society, is unfortunately going to have to be through force and violence. And this is where we are heading, I think, in South Africa, because let's say these guys are promising a perfect society, a better future. Oh, in the future, everyone is going to have healthcare. Everyone's going to have this. And yes, it's a good sort of thing to strive toward. But if you want to implement it realistically right now, you're going to have to be immoral and use force and, literally kill people. And this is, with Plato, he believed that he was a skeptic of democracy. He didn't really like the idea of democracy because he thought people were stupid. Yeah. And he thought that people weren't informed enough to make the correct decisions to elect individuals that were just and intelligent. And he had this idea that there had to be a philosopher king, right? So and this king would be a philosopher that is enlightened and sort of is intelligent and all of this. But right, we can think about it, right? We can write stories about that. But if you implement it, we know people are corruptible. People are extremely corruptible. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So this is where I'm skeptical. You cannot put kings in places because maybe you got one king, that's nice. The next one, it's tyranny. That's what it is. And I'm sorry to say that.
Yeah, no, of course. See, Plato, I know Plato, I was going on YouTube, and one of the societies that he admired a lot was the Spartans. He admired, the way they did things. And that was, I think that was one of the examples that reformed society that he was referring to. But you just explained it in a nutshell that you can't always force it. And I think the Spartans there was a lot of things that they forced upon the people back in those days. Yes.
And it comes down again to the collectivist ideology or individualist ideology. If you're an individual, if you recognize and believe that every single person has human rights, then you cannot impose and force people to fit in a neat little box that you believe is the correct way. It's, if you become king, you have this grand idea, and maybe the idea is beautiful, but you have to force people there, and that is immoral. Coercion, the use of physical violence is immoral. And, we can have a debate about that, but I'm sure, I'd love to hear what Julius Malema has to say about
that. Did you see what happened with Julius? His party had to pay 500,000 rand fine for Trevor, what's the previous finance minister? Trevor Manuel, yeah. Did you see that?
No, tell me.
Yeah, he won. Well, it was defamation of character. There was a court case, and he won it. He won the case, so there's a fine there has to be paid. Of course, 500,000 rand is a small change to them. I mean, they'll gladly pay it, I'm sure.
I thought it was like, I saw an article or something about the VBS banks as well.
Yeah. Something was said there. I didn't read the full story of it, but he got offended, and there was a court case, and he won it. Interesting.
Yeah.
There was something else you wanted to talk about earlier before we did this podcast. There was something you wanted to touch on. What was it? What was it again?
Well, I think we might have gone a little bit off topic on that. I just actually, I just want to encourage people to just
it's a lot to grasp, I know, but it's interesting. I'm enjoying this podcast. It's been interesting.
I'm glad to hear that. And philosophy it's such a huge, important topic, and I really do hope I do it justice. I mean, I'm a very, very small fish amongst gigantic fish swimming around, but I feel like
yeah, of course, but why not? That's why we're doing this podcast. To just open that mindset again, and then people go, you know what, these guys are actually right. And we seem to be forgetting what philosophy actually means. to the people. Not just our country, I mean all over, the whole world.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, so I have to stress again, I think, philosophy it's a very personal thing as well, because it's someone can come over to you and you might do something and they tap you on the shoulder and they say, listen, what you're doing here is wrong. What you should do is this. And they can turn around and walk away. Yeah. They didn't really do you any favor. Maybe they told you the correct thing, but the better thing to do is for it's actually the only way, is for yourself to reason through it and come to your own conclusion. It's thinking for yourself, rationalizing for yourself. And if, something smells bad, then maybe there's something rotten there. And you should try and figure out why. It's a personal thing, I think. And I don't want to oppose anything on anyone. I don't want to oppose philosopher kings on anyone.
Of course not. Yeah. Okay, Wesley, I don't know. Nothing else you want to add? I think we've touched it all. Or is there anything?
Oh, I've got so much more to add, but I think it's probably
no, go for it. We're only 40 minutes into the podcast. Go for it. If there's something else you want to add, go for it. Shoot.
Okay, I want to ask you some questions, and maybe you have.
I'm going to try to
heard of these before.
I'm going to try my best. I'm going to try my best.
These are like fun sort of thought experiments, right? Like ethical thought experiments. Have you ever heard of the trolley problem?
No. What is it word again?
The trolley problem or the train problem.
Oh, the train problem. No. Go ahead. Shoot.
Okay, so imagine this. So there's a train. It's out of control and it's speeding down a track. And up ahead in the distance are 5 workers who are stuck on the track and they can't move. Just before them is a split in the train track. And then on that other train track is one person that also can't escape. Now, you are standing at a lever. If you decide to pull the lever, the train will divert and it will kill the one person and the other 5 will survive. If you do nothing, if you make no decision, then 5 people die. What do you do?
Yes, Chala. No, that's a 50-50 decision that you got to make there. No, I don't know. No, you go ahead. You give me the answer.
No, I can't give you the answer. This is philosophy. You have to think for yourself.
No, but if you pull it, then 5 people die. And what's the other one?
No. If you don't pull it, 5 people die. If you do pull it, 1 person.
Yeah, you don't want to. The logic would tell you don't want to let 5 people die. It's a tough call. You make 1 die, so nah, it's a tough one. That's a real tough one. But logic would tell you let the 1 die, eh?
Well, yes, that would be sort of the more utilitarian sort of way to do it. So, like, it's better to sacrifice one person for the sake of 5 others.
For the sake of it, to let 4 other people live. Yeah. Interesting.
And these are important. These are really, really important questions. Because, like, okay, there are people that say, yeah, this is silly because it's a scenario that will never work or will never happen. But we working on self-driving cars. We're going to have to program, machines at some point to make those decisions. So we have to start making these decisions. The machine, we can't leave the machines.
Yeah, we don't want to get to that. I mean, look at McDonald's now. They've already got these computers now at McDonald's. And people are already saying now that that's causing unemployment problems now because you're taking away the cash now.
Oh yeah, and I mean the scary thing is that pretty soon every job will probably be taken, taken over by a machine. Yeah,
that's oh. Okay, Wesley. I think that's it. We're gonna call it a night.
Jason, thank you so much. I hope I made sense.
You did. No, you did. You were absolutely awesome. All right, quickly, Byrne. That is your other name. That is your YouTube name.
TheBurnZA, yes, one
here's
word.
your YouTube. I'm going to just quickly share it. There we go. Listeners out there and the viewers out there, this is Byrne's channel. He was on Anchor FM like me. I'm still on Anchor FM. But Byrne's also recently joined the YouTube. I'll leave a link. It's okay, but Wesley, can I leave a link in my description?
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
If you're interested, go onto his channel. There's much more videos that Wesley's going to make. And my podcast is on Anchor FM, also broadcasted on Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple, Pocket Cast. There's 11 platforms that my podcast is on at the moment. And tonight I'll put that on Anchor FM. And then tomorrow I will put the video, I'll upload the video version. Wesley, thank you very much, my man.
Thank you very much.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Cheers, people.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.